This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. Now let's get on to the episode.
Welcome to Shirts and Ties, a culture and education podcast. I'm Casey Shirts.
And I'm Brian Miller.
Brian, what do we got going today?
Well, we kind of have a two-part series going on. What did you entitle it?
The burdens teachers carry. People don't always know what teachers have to endure and go through. And this isn't a feel sorry for me. I think it's just eye-opening the amount of pressure teachers are under in public education right now.
We have two people who have joined us on the show, and they've joined us in a relatively short period of time. Sean Padden is the first. He's a teacher and the runner-up teacher of the year for the state of Minnesota, and he's just directly involved with the controversies that is happening in Minnesota, and so he can give just insight into when big political or nationwide events occur, how teachers have to deal with that and the fallout that occurs in public schools.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting conversation to just see how dramatically the life of the teachers and students has changed in Minnesota as a result of, this political firestorm.
So thank you, Sean, for joining us on the first of two episodes where we just kind of dive into the very real life of public education in the midst of public turmoil. Really quick, just kind of give us a brief snapshot of what's going on in your school district in Minnesota when it comes to ICE. And the reason why I think Casey and I are so intrigued is we've said for a long time that, unfortunately, public education becomes the battleground for politics. And I feel like this could be another one of those examples. So can you just kind of tell us what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, well, I agree wholeheartedly, right? It's it always usually falls to public education, and it's showing itself to do that here. Right now in my district personally, we're seeing a dramatic drop in student attendance. I've heard some reports in some districts around here in the state of Minnesota as much as 30 to 50%. The absence rates have jumped up. Some districts are reporting more than half their students are not attending at this point. And of course, when you look at this, some of them are not attending, obviously due to their immigration status. Some are mixed status families, and a lot are legalized citizens that are choosing not to attend out of fear and out of what they've seen taking place on the streets, right? So as a result, when you have attendance dropping like that, these students aren't getting the education they need, obviously. So we have to go back to almost COVID-like policies and procedures where we have students zooming in when we can and when they're able. I think that's starting to be a bit of an issue as well, too, because if students are not attending school, right, it's pretty safe to say the parents or guardians are probably not attending their place of work. So now money's not coming in. So now we're seeing internets be shut off, right, and things like that. So now getting access to our online platform, Schoology, which is the Google Classroom situation, has proven difficult. So we're back to printing papers and printing curriculum and basically sending packets home along with food delivery.
And still teaching the kids that are in your classroom.
And still trying to provide education to the students that are showing up. Yeah, it's trying to educate through fear, right? We have students that are afraid, and even the ones that are here, and that's it's a problem. And we're still, like I told you on the phone, we're still trying to do reading, writing, and arithmetic as well. Still trying to do the basics, all while trying to help families get fed and get work home to students that are not getting it.
When did you and other teachers realize that this was just going to be different in your schools?
Oh my goodness. I would say, I don't know, probably about 2 months ago, 2, 3 months ago, they started showing up at bus drop-offs, and then overflow parking here on school grounds, and I think that's where really we started to realize this is a different ball of wax, because for 30 plus years, right, immigration enforcement has been limited when it comes to their scope on school property and school grounds, and that has since gone away. And um, when you start bringing that level of enforcement to school property, and fear starts to take over, that's when we're like, okay, this is a totally different ball of wax. It's easy to say, right? The buzzword in education is always to meet the students where they're at. This is a new place for all of us,
Yeah.
right? It's a totally different game we're playing here. So we
Sean,
know.
correct me if I'm wrong. Did Minnesota, your school district, and the surrounding districts made a stance against
Yeah,
ICE, correct? Can you
it is.
clarify what that stance is and how that's impacting your relationship with the local government and all of that?
Well, I mean, the relationship with the local government has been fine. They've been very supportive, right, of trying to keep immigration enforcement off of school grounds and away from our bus stops. Our district and several districts, I know Duluth was one of them as well up north here, came out and basically said that schools are supposed to be places of learning, and safety is paramount, predictability is paramount for students in schools. And right now, regardless of where you fall on the ideology of immigration enforcement and the law, having you know, men and women outside of our building or across the street with assault rifles is not bringing that feeling of safety and predictability that our students need. And our students are still needing and requiring and should have access to an education. So their stance was stay out of our buildings and stay off of our school grounds. And when they do pop in, admin is quick to go out and make sure that they're not supposed to be here, that they need to move on. But again, we've had a lot of support from the local government. It's so far, thankfully, they have maintained a distance off our school grounds. But that was not the case at first. But yeah, they came right out. And then, of course, Education Minnesota decided to sue the federal government. And basically, exactly what we've been talking about here is, schools need to be safe zones, and they were for 30 plus years. The fact that they're not is a problem.
Immigration control, in theory, should be an organization that is also protecting kids, protecting citizens, and their presence, if necessary, in theory, could be one where students could look up to them, build good, positive relationships. But when you describe them as standing outside with automatic weapons and raiding bus stops, that can't be the relationship that's forming for your kids. What role are teachers playing in having these conversations and trying to explain? Because on one hand, we want to be very respectful of our law enforcement officers, and then on the other, these same people are potentially instilling fear in the kids. So what have you seen teachers doing to address this topic?
Well, the dialogue is wide open, especially in my building. Now, my curriculum, I'm a health teacher, so my curriculum lends itself to having those discussions a little more easily, right? When we're talking about your physical health, when we see the loss of life that is taking place on our streets. And then, of course, when you talk about the mental health piece of it, right? Because to your point, it is fear-based when they see that. And these students also, the vast majority of them in my building have a great relationship with our resource officer and law enforcement. But they have family members that have been picked up going to work or at their jobs, and or friends, and they've seen their peers and students picked up. And so there's that element of fear, right? And when you start talking about that, you start talking about the mental health piece. So in our school, I have found that the majority of the dialogue has been driven by the students, and that's what we want to provide them, is that safe place to process verbally what's taking place in our community and what they're seeing and why they're seeing it. So in my class, there's been a lot of discussion around the mental health piece, because I think that's the one thing that we should all be able to agree on, whether it's red, blue, left, right, should be immaterial. I think what we're seeing unfolding here is generational trauma for our students, right? And I think everybody here knows that when you see generational trauma, it comes home to roost, and it usually comes home to roost at the feet of educators. In the end, we're going to be the ones responsible for helping them through the mental trauma. We're going to be the ones responsible for trying to, patch those holes in broken family units. And we're going to be responsible for helping them navigate these unbelievable times. And I also think, and this is maybe Debbie Downer of me, but when we don't help these kids fast enough, us being the educators, when the community and the families are not seeing the results they want fast enough, and our efforts stall or slow down, we're the ones that will ultimately be demonized for not fixing it fast enough, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen that trailer and we've seen that movie. I wish this was a prediction, but I really do think it's a spoiler.
No,
It's just where
Sean, and that's where Casey and I get so frustrated, not only for the buildings that we work in, but just the educational landscape overall, because we are tasked to fight these battles. We did it with COVID, right? There was decisions made that we had to endure, and we had to figure out solutions. And because parents and teachers, or parents and students and local community members, can't get to their government, they can't get to the president, they can't get to these higher entities, they can come to our building. And so we suffer the consequence. And so I want to shift a little bit from, not that the students aren't always the focus, but this is yet again, not that many years later, your teachers are having to endure this radically unknown time. They're responsible for caring for students when they're not psychologists, they're not therapists, they're not their parents, they're not all these things that they're not asked to be. But also, don't forget about the curriculum and teach them, because if we don't teach them how to read and write and do math, they're gonna have another bubble. Like we talk about the COVID bubble, there's gonna be another bubble of lack of learning for these students. So what's the temperature of your teachers? Like how are you guys supporting each other? How are you guys enduring this? What's going on?
frustration. That's the word for it, right? It's very frustrating. I work in a building that's pretty tight knit and has a lot of veteran educators in it. And so the support there has been pretty good. There's been lots of meetings, lots of coming together, right? We've all developed office hours now for students that are not attending, right? We're making sure we're available even by email. Like I said, the food delivery teachers are going out and doing food delivery and dropping off internet hotspots so students can access, sending work home, getting it back. But by and large, frustration. I also work in a DLSI school, so we are dual language in my building, and we offer several core curriculum in dual language. And there are teachers that teach here that are legalized citizens that are scared to come to work. And how can they perform? Right? How can they be at their best for the students that are here and the students that are remote learning? And that's where it gets frustrating. And when you see the teacher burnout still at around 3 years, I think this is gonna to speed that up for many, because we are wearing a lot of hats, and our admin is also doing the best that they absolutely can to juggle all of this, right? But it's not easy. I mean, if we didn't have each other, if it didn't lean on each other, it would be absolute nightmare fuel. I mean, we're doing the absolute best we can to help each other out when we can. The real struggle we're struggling with right now is just like the logistics of it all, right? Like, and that's the piece a lot of people don't think about either, is taking attendance. And if you're absent from school so many days, you're automatically dropped from the roll, right? I think it's about 15. And it's like, how do we circumvent all these things? Because it's not that this student doesn't want to log into the Zoom. Maybe they lost their internet. Maybe they're, and it's communicating with families and trying to be like, hey, mark them here. They actually did do something, but they can't upload it to you, and things like that. But we've really organized. We have a spreadsheet for food and work delivery, and it warms my heart in a way that teachers are really stepping up. But I think, to your point, at what end, because the candles are being burned at both ends. And eventually, when we go back to our districts at some point, which I told you on the phone, we're currently doing in the contract negotiations, we tend to be labeled as, you know, selfish and entitled and wanting more than we need. So
I want to follow up with Brian's question because it did have me thinking about the adults a little bit. And you've touched on you guys coming together, but I wonder if there's any intentional systemic processes in place to provide mental health support, to help teachers with the language they need to talk to kids. Because you mentioned having a lot of veteran teachers, and certainly you sound like you're comfortable having any conversation with kids. I was when I was in the classroom, but I imagine there are a lot of teachers that are not comfortable with those conversations or who are begging for some support in how to have these conversations. So do you guys have some systemic things in place to
we have
offer
some
that?
systemic things in place. We have basically cookie cutter emails and text messages. We use talking points a lot that teachers can copy and paste to kind of get the verbiage right. Because as a district, and you know this, we want to drive the narrative and we want it to be consistent across the board from teachers and personnel. So they have access to all of that, right? Including the mental health services. I'll say this: we had was it two? Yeah, we had two PD days that were supposed to be all professional development. I believe Avid, things of that nature. And our admin said, "Here's your PD day. The therapy dogs are coming in," and they did. They brought in the therapy dogs. We had yoga, and it was time in your classroom. The counselors are available. We're still looking for people to sign up for food deliveries, right? So they took two PD days basically off of our plate and said, "What do you need?" Which I think was, I mean, for a little morale boost and you want to feel like we're all in this together, I think that was a brilliant move. It's tough to come in right now and be like, well, we're doing walkthroughs today. So it's like, holy cow, I got 4 kids on Zoom. I got, we got a desk upside down over there. And, can we just take a collective breath? Right. So there have been things like that in place. And we have the newsletter's gone out pretty much weekly now. It used to be monthly, updating families on where we're at, updating families on food delivery. And so the communication piece has been great. But for the younger teachers, they do have access to quite a bit of the prearranged emails and text messages that this is what we're doing. And we're getting them as much help as we can, because it can be difficult to have these conversations for sure.
So I know this is, and for, Casey and I, we live in somewhat isolated communities where we don't have this sort of temperature. But on top of that, you guys decided to attack and go after TikTok. So can you talk to me about that as well? So your district is suing TikTok, or
Keith Ellison, the state of Minnesota is suing TikTok.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I was reached out to. So I was a finalist for Teacher of the Year for the state of Minnesota last year. And that was unbelievable in and of itself. And made it to the finals, and the woman who won it is absolutely, utterly amazing. She's going in year 50 of teaching. So I want to talk about longevity. Yeah, so it was amazing. And then that opened up some doors. And then out of the blue, I was contacted to see, basically say what I saw with students in social media and the spike in mental health issues that correlate along with that, and these addictive algorithms that TikTok throws out to students and to kids that it's just meant to constantly feed them whatever it is that they're looking for. And I met with Attorney General Keith Ellison, and I was able to speak at that press conference. And he announced that he is suing TikTok. And I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. And right away, it's the talk was, well, do you want rid of TikTok? And it's like, no, it's not necessarily the case. What we want TikTok to police what it's shelling to kids a little bit better. And I think the term that came to mind that was used time and time again is it's kind of digital nicotine. right? It's proven addictive and not always in the best of ways, obviously. And it's one of those things where, back in the day, if you had somebody hand you a cigarette and you're like, I really don't like this, and you put the cigarette away, and then that person stayed there and said, well, try this one, 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 and that person followed you around in your pocket. It's a problem. And the parental controls are proven not to be enough. There's some very vile and sexually charged things on TikTok that kids have access to. And so we decided
So where
to
is
go.
it at in the process now?
That is still pretty early, to be honest with you. I mean, legal system crawls, right? We all know that. So it's still pretty early in the process. Quite a bit of back and forth that I'm aware of. Obviously, TikTok things, hey, the parameters are there, the parental controls are there. The flip side is we have a bunch of parents that don't know how to access or use those parental controls. And then when they do, you get an update, TikTok updates, and a lot of the times those updates turn off those parental controls back to default. Parents don't know, right? And I understand there's a parental responsibility to this as well, but the fact of the matter is the parents' responsibility to keep kids from the gentleman's club, but if they get to the door of the gentleman's club, there's usually bouncers at the door of the gentleman's club to keep them out, and TikTok doesn't have any of those real protections right now. So
Has this group who is leading the charge against TikTok defined what they want as the outcome? Is it age restriction? Is it disclosing algorithm? What's the outcome that they're desiring?
there's age restriction. There is age restriction that was mentioned. I don't know if that's exactly what they're driving at. I do know they want an explanation as to their algorithm and why a student who perhaps looks up say something as sensitive as suicide, right? And they feed them, instead of here, get help. Here's 988, call this number, right? Here's some resources. They feed them more ways to do it, right? I mean, that's an interesting, because again, they're just designed to, oh, they like this or they're interested in this. Now we're going to give it to them all day, every day, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, they definitely want to talk about the algorithm. They want to talk about age restrictions, and they want to see exactly what these parental controls that they like to discuss so much actually do, and why they're reset on updates as well. Because the child at that point doesn't have to tell the parent, oh, hey, you know what? All of a sudden I've accessed all this stuff after the new update. That's interesting.
Sure. I think what's fascinating is obviously there's a strong correlation between TikTok and what's going on with ICE in terms of Minnesota's making a stance that we're going to protect kids. And we want to fight battles that we even seem to be almost impossible battles to win, but they're worth engaging in and having discussion about. And I think maybe that's a little bit of what I'd like to talk about, because public education, I think this is true. Both of you are smarter than me, so tell me if this is not true. Public education generically has had a stance of we can't ruffle feathers because we serve the public. And so we can't make these big stances. We are oftentimes more told what stance to make. And then we have to figure out how to manifest it. Is that a true statement roughly? Or am I
I mean, I've
Am
been
I
at
off?
it a while. I would say that's true. I would push back a little bit, and Casey obviously agree or disagree, but I would push. I think some of that started to shift when teachers started taking bullets for students, right? I think when we became human shields in so many terrible situations, I think that shift kind of changed to red or blue. I don't think it's political to want to protect kids. Do what's best for
Agreed.
kids, and I think the districts are starting to catch up to that shift. I think that's probably been a shift that's taken place in the teachers' mindset a long time ago. I think districts are starting to to catch up. I don't know what you think, Casey, but
Well, I guess I'll follow up with another question, which is, it's along these lines. So schools, eh, there's this political firestorm that exists, and we're pitting governments and corporations against our public institutions where we are taking care of kids. And And so to take a stand in schools, you put yourself at the ire of either, in this case, the federal government, or in this, in the TikTok case, the corporations. I guess are your teachers in your district comfortable taking these stands? Have your teachers been given guidance? And then long term, what is going to be the impact? Because again, I'll go back to the question I said at the beginning. Immigration control should be somebody we can look up to.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll answer the ones about what we're being told in terms of the stance. And what we've been told is pretty shades of gray, pretty broad brushstroke, right? Is it provide them a safe space to air their grievances, make sure they feel heard, make sure they feel valued. But that goes for everybody. And that is a tightrope, right? Because you don't want to be polarizing to your students. And there's going to be students in your room that are like, we do think this is the best thing, or that they're trying their best and that this is what needs to happen type of situation, right? So that's basically the guidance we've been given, right? Is give them a safe space, let them feel heard, let them feel valued, remind them that you still need to be students and you still need to be respectful of everyone and their viewpoints, and we still need to get things done, which is just, again, it lends itself easier to my curriculum because I'm health, but I can't imagine having these discussions and being like, okay, let's solve for why. Right afterwards. That is be very interesting. I wouldn't want to do that. But that's basically the guidance we've been giving. Right? And also the guidance is don't be addressing Border Patrol, please. Don't be out there. If you see them, let admin address it, right? We were told during some of the relatively large protests, especially when we knew that there were going to be pro-ICE protesters showing up, we were told, do not go down there. Right? We're not interested in you calling in tomorrow because you're locked up somewhere or anything like that. So we've been given guidance in that respect. The students, I will say, by and large, it's not a favorable outlook, obviously, right? When it comes to the immigration enforcement. I don't disagree, Casey. I do think, immigration enforcement are federal officers that are helping people and follow the law and enforcing the law should be an organization that you look up to. Unfortunately, what we're seeing and what took place with Operation Metro Surge is outside the law, where people are just randomly being pulled over, right? And my father was a St. Paul police officer for 34 years, retired, and just speaking with him about it gives me a lot of insight because, he's like, right now, if you want the law to be trusted, they need to operate within a law as well. And right now, it's just no probable cause. We're just yanking people out of cars. And again, the two people who, tragically lost their lives were American citizens. It's not helping. I could tell you that because it's not helping look up to them anymore.
I want to continue on this train, but I guess I always kind of shift a little bit towards the staff because, the only connection that I have to any sort of experience that you're having is the COVID experience, and it was, initially we're in this together, and then as it went on and we began to evaluate the mandates coming down, you started getting fractions within your staff where some staff heavily wanted masks, then they wanted double masks, and we got to protect kids. But then you had some other staff saying, nope, now the government has gone too far. We shouldn't have masks. And so we fought each other. We fought the public. It just became, near the end, it was a massacre of all sides, internally and externally. Are you seeing that with teachers? Because I got to believe that there are some teachers who would like to go to the pro-ICE rally, and there are some teachers who would like to go to the anti-ICE. Like, you're going to have teachers on both sides. And so I'm just curious on how, when a district says, this is the stance we're making, how does it navigate the differences of opinions within its own people?
Yeah, it's interesting. I gotta say, here in my building, it's been it hasn't been that noticeable, right? I mean, I know there are people, I'm sure, that quite possibly don't fall in line with the district stance on things, but I do think by and large, being educators. And like I mentioned earlier, a large swath of us pretty veteran educators. I think what we see is kids that are frightened, and regardless of the reason, I think the educator and paternal instinct kicks in, and let's help these kids the best way that we know how. Um, so the political talk amongst the teachers outside of, hey, how do we navigate office hours? How do we navigate Zooming kids in? How do we navigate attendance policies and procedures? We've come together a lot on that. I don't know that we've come together a whole lot on let's all believe, lock, stock, and barrel where our district's going or anything like that. I think it's more or less let's take care of these kids the best that we can. So I haven't seen as much of the infighting. I did see exactly what we're talking about, Brian, though, with the COVID situation, right? We did have the I'm not wearing a mask, forget this, or, I'm coming in a bubble. The polar opposites. We did see that. Where I'm not seeing that personally around the water coolers or Keurigs.
I wonder too if COVID invisible. You can't see the danger to the kids, but if you see armed men showing up at bus stops and you literally see it and you see the fear in your students' eyes, I suppose that no matter where you're at in the political spectrum, that fear is probably real and genuine, and the instinct to protect kids becomes real and genuine. I guess I want to follow up back to the students a little bit, and we've been bouncing all over the place, but have you noticed students acting out or being more difficult to teach or educate, or being less willing to engage in the learning just because of all that's going on?
The students that are here that are coming daily, no, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen behaviors rise or students just, you know what, I'm not doing this project because it seems meaningless in the wake of, current events. I haven't seen that. I have seen, because right now we have the drawdown, right? And I gave the air quotes there, which you couldn't see, but we have the drawdown in I'll say this every day. I see people posting all the time, vans lined up outside a neighborhood. So the drawdown is perception, I guess, right? I'm sure they moved some.
What is that draw? When you say drawdown, what is that?
Well, they said that they're ending Operation Metro Surge, right? And they're starting to pull out of the metropolitan area. The general consensus is we'll believe it when we see it. Right. And right now, things are still pretty hot and happening here. So I know there's like this dialogue and narrative out there that, oh, we ended it. It was a great success, which was okay. So I mean, it's still taking place, right? That it's still happening. So yeah, I mean, it hasn't stopped at all, but the students are starting to trickle back in a little bit now. We're starting to see more showing up that haven't been here for a while. They're coming in sporadically, and to Casey's question, when they're here, their behaviors tend to elevate a little bit. They haven't been around their peers in weeks, right? So they get in, and it's like, it's social hour, baby. What have you been doing? How's it been going? You stayed home this whole time, and now it's like, hey, we got stuff to do, and you want to give them that opportunity to catch up with their friends, but at the same time, we got stuff to do, and you've been missing out. I mean, you can say what you want about Zoom, you can say what you want about sending stuff home. You got to be in the classroom.
When do you think it'll feel normal again?
What is normal in the education world, right? I mean, I'm just waiting for the next shoe to drop. What's next? Is that the usual question we ask? God, I wish I knew. I mean, we're going into our third trimester here, and then summer right around the corner. I would like to think that hopefully we come in August and everything has settled down. But I mean, every day it seems like it's something else, right? So I'm cautiously optimistic that hopefully by next year, I'd like to think if this drawdown is what it is and they're really pulling all these troops out, that hopefully, within the next month or two, things simmer down and we start to see our attendance shoot back up, which would be awesome. I think for every student, and that's a thing too that people need to think about. And I talk a lot about this in my class. For every student that hates school, right? And I tell my students flat out, if you hate it here, I see you. I understand it. If you're bullied or you feel like you're a victim of bullying or racism or sexism, or you feel ostracized, or whatever the reason is you hate school, I see you, and I want I want you to understand that I see you. But the flip side of that coin is there's kids in your room where that 7 hours in school is the safest, most stable 7 hours of their day. Right. And that's what we try to provide, and that's what we want to get back to. And you want the kids in the building. I mean, we need the kids on site in the building learning. We want them to feel hopeful, right? We don't want them to be like, what do I want to, what am I doing here? I mean, I could get picked up at any minute. I could go home. My family could get picked up at any minute. I don't care about this stuff. So, I mean, hopefully by next year, we're simmered down.
Sean, you're very kind to come on. We're kind of getting near the end of the hour here. And I know that it is probably very difficult to speak, to be the voice for all, for your district, for Minnesota. But I'm going to ask an impossible question here.
Here we go.
And it's impossible because we as a country are very separated, and depending on the news channel that you turn on, you hear polar opposite truths of what is happening. And so my question, I guess, is when you hear the narratives published all throughout our country, and you chat with people, and you chat with people like us, and you kind of have this, you guys aren't here, your boots aren't on the ground here, you don't have those students missing, you don't have those guns across the street. What is something that you feel like, man, you guys just need to know this. This is what's happening. This is what I'm seeing, and this is a truth that it crosses all political lines. This is the temperature of our schools right now.
Well, I mean, I'll steal a quote, I guess, from, I believe it was when the lawsuit was announced against the federal government. And that's it. The DHS's presence near schools and on school property has, again, created an element of fear and trauma that it prevents us from doing our job effectively. And in the wake of everything that's happened, education needs to continue for every student, right? I don't care, their legality aside, every student, their political ideologies or their family's political thoughts or what news station they turn on aside, students and kids need to be protected. Their educational rights need to be protected, and they need to be provided with an education that allows them to move on to be productive citizens and lead long, healthy lives. And right now, that's being jeopardized. Right. And I think that's something that hopefully, again, we strip everything away. We should hopefully be able to agree on is that the kids in this situation need to be protected. They need to be educated. Knowledge is power, right? It's cliche, but it's true. And I do think, to your point, Brian, about what news station to turn on and things like that, I do think education is and always will be the greatest weapon to use against those that seek to divide us. Right. And I think the silver lining that can be pulled out of all this, if there is one, and we spoke a little bit about it on the phone, that students are having a dialogue in the classrooms and teachers are having dialogues with those students. And like I said earlier on, it's mostly been driven by the students. And if we can teach this generation to have dialogue and open dialogue and communication versus the demonization of somebody that doesn't agree with you on all aspects, or the demonization of law enforcement or whatever it is, if we can just have conversation and try to find common ground and teach this generation to not do it with, just such vile and spewing venom and hate, then maybe we can make things better going forward, because they need to be better. The next generation needs to do better, right? And we're the stewards of that. We're trying to help them get there.
Yeah. Casey, any last thoughts or words?
Well, I guess I'm just a little heartbroken. This country is an incredible country, and it's one. I mean, if we go back to the Reagan administration, we had processes for people to come and to work the jobs that maybe were hard to fill, use that money to better the situation of their families, and somehow we've lost sight of that. And when you describe again, this is a nation that I'm so happy to live in and be a part of. But when you describe troops standing outside your schools, armed men, armed masked men going to bus stops, it's hard for me to believe that this is where we are. And I'm out in an area where I'm not seeing that, and it was hard to appreciate the realities of that. But thank you for coming and for talking about it, and I hope that a few of our listeners will hear that, and it will settle into them a little bit, and maybe help them understand that we can do better, and that I don't think that any of our leaders historically, red or blue, that this was the vision they had for our country or for our cities or for our schools. So thank you, Sean.
I appreciate it. And I'll steal one more quote from our teacher of the year here who beat me, by the way. Linda Wallenberg.
Yeah, what's her email? I think I'd rather talk to First Place.
Yeah, right? Trust me, she's busy. There's a reason I was free. Okay. Her whole platform was we cannot surrender the classroom. And I think that is just so well put. No matter who's in charge, red, blue, whatever, when students are afraid of the federal government and it's affecting their education, we can't surrender the classroom. We have to speak out and do what we can for our students.
Yeah. And maybe just the last push that I would say is we didn't talk about it, but I know how many days have you been working now without a contract?
I don't know. It's well over 200. I
Yeah.
mean, it's we're in mediation right now. It's
so
yeah.
I just think that's baffling to me, and it's baffling to me. And you're not the only district that when you go to the table as a teacher and say, "Hey, we could use a little extra," and you're looked at and accused of being selfish. Sometimes I think these conversations, I'm hoping for the educators who listen, we're preaching to the choir, but we have a lot of non-educators and parents who listen. And maybe I just would like to just pause and say, this is what educators do. They get handed a raw deal over and over and over again, somebody else's decision, and we have to make sense of it, add more and more to our plate so that kids are safe and secure and protected, but also that they're learning so that they can continue to improve life in the communities around them. And what you guys are doing, Sean, what you were doing, I'm just proud to call myself an educator when I'm surrounded by you guys. I steal some of your valor, and I just say, man, educators are pretty remarkable people. So thank you for what you do and the people that you serve.
Do more with less is something where we get told a lot, and we're good at it. Maybe that's the problem.
That's the problem. I think that's the problem. We're good at it.
We're too good at it.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And our thoughts, we are with you guys. We support you guys. And we hope that hopefully we can find some resolutions sooner than later.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.